on the West Coast. Thank you for joining us for today's training on navigating disputed accounts in the loan application process. Uh, Now, disputed accounts are a very tricky segment of the loan application process because if the loan officer does not specifically review the credit report for disputed accounts, especially in the derogatory section, it is a detail that can be very easily missed and one that can basically come back and bite you because if this is an agency loan, then your automated underwriting findings could be totally invalidated. So let's get right into today's training on navigating disputed accounts in the loan application process. So, what exactly do we mean by a disputed account? Okay, a disputed account is an account that has been questioned or complained about by the account holder, which in this case is our borrower, and appears as disputed in a disputed status on the credit report. Now, please note these very important points. A disputed account may affect the ability to get a loan. Uh, Credit bureaus generally do not use disputed accounts to calculate credit scores until the investigation is complete. So, this is why it's going to affect the loan. Because if you have an account that's in a disputed status, when you remove that account from disputed status, it may affect the credit score, right? Credit score usually may go down once the disputed status is removed from the account. And all of a sudden, that account's history is now all of a sudden put back into the mix for the credit score. And then in most cases, the credit score goes down. Now, please do be aware that the only way to remove an account from a disputed status is for the borrower to contact the creditor and the credit bureau to remove the disputed status on the account if that is what is needed. And so if you have an automated underwriting approval for a conventional loan and it's in a disputed status, then same as for an FHA loan, the only way to have that DU or AUS be valid is for the account to be removed at the bureau level, right? And the only way to do that is for the customer to request for it to be taken out of dispute status. And then, as we discussed in yesterday's training, to complete a rapid rescore so that the dispute status is removed at the bureau level. So now, again, like I was stating when we first started talking about this, it is very important that part of your credit report review process be to thoroughly check all of the accounts on the report to make sure that none of the accounts are in a disputed status. If they are in a disputed status and it's a zero balance, then that will probably be okay. But if it's not a zero balance, then definitely pay attention to the guidance so that you know how this is to be resolved. So let's break it down into different loan types and how this may affect us when we are reviewing the file and viewing our approval and seeing what we need to do to be able to get this to close. So for a conventional loan, when you do have a disputed account, automated underwriting, whether it's DU or LP, whichever you're using for Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, automated underwriting will review the credit report and will determine if an approved eligible for DU or an accept finding for LP is valid depending on if automated underwriting was able to include the disputed account in the analysis. Now, this will be verbiage that you will find in the findings. It's going to tell you either we saw that you had disputed accounts, we were able to consider them in the findings, and you have your prove eligible, or uh, we saw that you have disputed accounts, we were not able to include them in the analysis, so your approve eligible findings will have to be downgraded to a manual underwrite. Now, you know that manual underwrite is not an option for conventional loans. So at that point, your automated underwriting findings are not valid. Now, let me explain again very clearly here. This is a super important point because it is not the first time that an MLO has received an approve eligible finding, which is, you're approved, or an accept findings in LP, which means you're approved, and did not read the small print, did not notice that there was a disputed account in the credit report, did not read the small print, ran with the approval. Here we are, it's approved, good to go. Submits the file to underwriting only to be told 2-3 days later, you have an issue here. Your loan is in suspense because you have a disputed account and your automated underwriting is invalidated, right? So, like I was stating, for a valid AUS, automated underwriting, the disputed account will need to be removed from dispute status, again, by reaching out to the creditor and reaching out to the credit bureau, letting them know that you're no longer disputing the balance, disputing the payment history, disputing whatever it was that you disputed, that everything's okay, and that you want it removed from dispute status. You will then need some type of documentation from the creditor or from the credit bureau acknowledging, yes, your account has now been removed from a dispute status, right? And then that letter would have to be provided to the credit agency uh, in the form of so that a rapid rescore can be completed to remove the dispute status from the credit report at the bureau level. That's the only way to resolve this. This is not like we'll do a credit supplement, give it to the underwriter, and they can see it. No, it has to be taken up at the bureau level. Automated underwriting has to pick it up that it's no longer in dispute status, and then you're going to get your findings, and hopefully you will still be approve eligible because taking that account out of dispute status hopefully did not downgrade your borrower's credit score or credit profile to the point that TU will now not approve it. Now, that could always be a probability, remember, because when the account is disputed, it may not be able to analyze the account properly. That's why you would have gotten that alert in the first place. So do be aware, conventional loans, you may get that verbiage that it was either yes, approved, or no, we couldn't review it because the disputed account, and now you got to downgrade to manual underwrite. So don't get bit by that one right there. Now, FHA loans is a little bit easier to deal with the disputed accounts. FHA loans, when you're running them through automated underwriting, for example, for DU, you will get a verbiage pre-written on the findings that state, this is not exact quote here, but that state that any account with a balance of $1,000 or greater, or any group of accounts with a cumulative balance, meaning if you add up all of the individual account balances, they are $1,000 or more, then the AUS approval is downgraded to a manual underwrite with manual underwriting guidelines and DTI in effect. So do all remember, please, that FHA manual underwriting guidelines are different than when you are submitting the loan through AUS. When you have manual underwriting guidelines, housing expense maximum is 31% DTI, and total debt maximum is 43% DTI. Right? So keep in mind, totally different than the 45.9 and 56.9 maximums that you get when you run through automated underwriting. That's why it's such an issue if you do get downgraded to a manual underwrite and your borrower was approved at a 43.55, and now all of a sudden you need to meet 31.43, or conversely, the borrower can pay down some of those account balances, right? That's why I was saying with FHA, it's a little easier than conventional. With FHA, you could tell the borrower, okay, we have 5 accounts and we have a total of $1,400, so we're over the limit. Maybe you can pick 2 accounts that total $500 that will get them under $1,000 if they paid those accounts down. So then you would just have the borrower pay those 2 accounts down, and then you can do what you're going to do there of telling them, okay, send it to underwriting and we're good to go. And hopefully you would be good to go there. Non-QM loans, remember, non-QM loans are manual underwriting, right? So if it's a non-QM loan, there is no automated underwriting that is going to come into question there. It is simply going to be based on whatever the guidelines state for that individual investor where you're submitting that loan. And I did want to make a point here on the FHA loans. I do have a mistype there for a validate U.S. account. Account will need to be removed from dispute status. That is not correct. That just auto-populated there when I was working the slide. But do note, for the FHA loan, you do not need to do the rapid rescore if what the borrower is doing is basically just paying down the account balances and doing a credit supplement, providing that to underwriting, and they should accept that for your FHA loan. Now, again, going back to non-QM, it's guideline specific. There is no manual underwriting. So if, for example, the guideline for that particular option doesn't have any guidance on disputed accounts, or maybe says disputed accounts are okay, it's whatever the guidelines state. Most of the guidelines are going to require the disputed account balance to be reduced to $250 in order to eliminate the disputed account issue. So if you have a non-QM loan and the borrower has 3 disputed accounts and the disputed accounts have 0 balances, then no action needs to be taken by the MLO regarding the disputed accounts. However, if the disputed account has a balance above $250, and I recently had that, it was a credit card where the borrower had just been disputing some type of charge previously charged to him. He wasn't disputing the payment history, he wasn't disputing necessarily the balance. So what the borrower did in that case, I think the account had a balance of like $2,250. So he just paid the credit card balance down. And it was a credit card that was not in a derogatory status either. It was actually not in the derogatory area. It was an open account. He just had disputed some type of charge previously, and that was still being shown in the account status. So he just paid the account balance down to $250, provided a documentation from the online portal with the new account balance. I went ahead and ordered a credit supplement to also document the new account balance, provided my documentation to underwriting, and underwriting cleared the disputed account condition because we met the guideline requirement. So you see 3 different loan types, 3 different ways that the disputed accounts can be resolved. So there is no homogeneous process for disputed accounts. You just simply have to review the guidance for each specific loan type and make sure that you follow the necessary guidance to clear these disputed accounts and be able to proceed with your loan. So remember, on the conventional loan, you need to get a rapid rescore to take the disputed account off of there. Because in the FHA loans, it's going to be balance based. So if you reduce the cumulative balance on the disputed accounts below $1,000, you should be okay. And in non-QM, you have to look at the guidelines, see what they state, and it's usually going to require reducing the balance of the disputed account below a certain amount in order to be able to proceed with the loan. So that's today's guidance on disputed accounts, and I'm going to give it a moment here to see if there's any questions, because this is a very tricky topic and one that can be missed. So let's give it another minute here. Okay, well, looks like I did a pretty thorough job then. If we don't have any questions, and I do look forward to seeing you on next week's Tuesday training. Everybody have a good day.